Do you remember your first mobile phone? And do you remember the brand of your first mobile phone? If you are more or less as old as I am, and if you have grown up in Europe, then I'm pretty certain that your first mobile phone was from a European manufacturer. Today it seems very unlikely, but in the mobile communication sector, Europe was once a big player. We had German manufacturers, also some manufacturers in Scandinavia that dominated the market. Nowadays, the mobile communication sector went away. Hardly anyone is producing in Europe, and hardly anyone of those manufacturers from the early days are still here. Most of them went to Asia. Why do I tell you this? Because there are many similarities between the PV industry and the mobile communication industry. Also in the PV industry, Europe has been in the beginning a big player, and the most important names came from here. And over the time, most of them went away and gave their production somewhere to Asia, for example. Most of them, but not all of them, Fronius is one of the very few that are still producing here in Austria and in Europe. A very warm welcome to this webinar today. I want to show you why Fronius is still producing here and what advantages this has for us and of course for you. Why is Fronius here? Simple question, simple answer, because we were founded in Pettenbach in Upper Austria. You might have already heard this story. Günter Fronius has founded the company in a small wooden garage in Pettenbach. It started very small and it has become a successful and international company over the years. We feel connected to the region, and this is a core reason why we are still producing here. Where are we producing? Mostly in Austria, also a little bit in Czech Republic. You see it here on the slide. In Krumlov in Czech Republic, inductive components and cable trees are produced. Krumlov is at the Austrian and Czech Republic border, so it is in another country, but we are speaking of maybe 200 kilometers distance to the other sites. The production site is in Satlet. The assembly is happening, and then in the others, in Steinhaus is our service and repair center. Thalheim, research and development. Pettenbach is where the board of our company is located, and in Wels is marketing and sales. This is the place where I'm speaking from. All the Austrian sites, they are within 15 minutes by car, so very, very close to each other. So why actually is Fronius still in Europe? Why haven't we moved so far? First of all, because we want to keep value creation in Europe. You have to know that I have some numbers here for you. If a client invests or a customer invests €1 in Austria, in Fronius, then a vast majority of this investment stays in Austria and Europe. As you can see here, 95% of our contractual partners are located in Europe. That also is to say that you cannot become simply a partner of Fronius. There's a code of conduct that our partners have to agree on, and they have to fulfill high criteria on sustainability, on working conditions, human rights, and so on. 70% of the components and materials are produced in Europe, and even 20% of the materials come directly from Austria. But it's not just about the value creation that stays in Europe. Fronius also stays here to keep know-how here in Europe. Now I get back to the example I brought in the beginning with the mobile communication sector. You might remember the discussion about the mobile communication infrastructure and the discussion about who is building it up. Should this be an investor from Asia or someone from the Western world? And the issue was that it is critical infrastructure, and nobody wanted some foreign force to build up this critical infrastructure. And the same happens with the PV industry. Inverters have become critical infrastructure. You can see here in this picture there's the inverter, and you see many arrows going from the inverter to different devices and to the modules. A very overloaded graphic, and it should show you that the inverter nowadays is more than just a simple converter from DC to AC. It is connected to many devices. Think of our Watt Pilot or the Ohm Pilot. And it is also critical for the grid operator to stabilize the network. And the question one has to ask is, where will the authority to control millions of systems be in the future? Will it be here in Europe, or will it be somewhere far away? Moreover, an inverter handles a lot of sensible data. First of all, as I said, think of the data you get out of the statistics of a PV system, of the production data. You can see when people are taking a shower, when they go to work, when they come home, how much warm water they need. This is all data you do not want to have in the wrong hands. Fronius is also taking here extra security measures. All the data is stored in servers in Austria and European clouds. And customer data and system data is stored separately. So this is also an extra measure against cybercrime. So if I can sum up this point, Fronius is producing here because we know our responsibility, we know the responsibility for our data, we know the responsibility for as a critical infrastructure manufacturer, and we know the responsibility we have to our local community, to the region we come from. Secondly, Fronius is still in Europe because we care about the people. As I said, we feel connected to the region, we feel connected to the people that are living here. And it is important for us that our inverters, our products, are produced in a fair way and in a manner where our workers can experience European standards and very high working standards when they are producing the inverters. I give you again some examples. We care about our employees, for example, by installing a special shop floor lighting for our workers at the assembly lines. Those workers have to work in shifts, so also overnight. And this special shop floor lighting concept doesn't disturb the biorhythm in order to keep them healthy and as sane as possible. Also, Fronius is providing social coaches to help colleagues, for example, with language barriers. In the last 2 years, because of the war in Ukraine, we got many workers from Ukraine that started working at Fronius. And Fronius provided, as I said, social coaches, for example, for those workers in order to help them in their professional life, to learn the language fast, to get into work, but also in private life, to get their children to schools, to help them dealing with authorities, to help them finding accommodation, and so on and so forth. So the social help of Fronius goes beyond the professional life. It also goes into a private life of our workers. And this is all proved, not just because I am saying this, but because some awards we received. There to mention is the EcoVadis Gold Award. This is an award you receive when fulfilling certain criteria regarding environment or working conditions or ethics. And we also received the Best Place to Work award. This is also a special award because it is not awarded because of a jury saying you are fulfilling criteria, but because of co-worker surveys where our workers said they're happy where they're working and happy with their conditions. So also something Fronius is very proud of. And finally, we do not just care about our workers, our people, but also about their children. There is a childcare place, a kindergarten at Satlet, directly located at the production plant. So our workers, they know that their children, they are taken care of while they are working. And in this regard, it is to mention that Fronius is doing this because we want to keep our workforce in place. We want to help parents to unite private life and professional life, and especially we want to foster mothers to stay in their professional occupation. In general, Fronius is doing a lot for women in technical professions. There's a program called Mentality, and as I said, Fronius is fostering this process that we get more women into technical professions. And finally, Fronius is producing in Europe because we want to produce sustainable. We want to produce to very high standards, and those very high environmental standards we can only guarantee if we are producing in Europe. Sustainability is in our DNA. I told you in the beginning, Günther Fronius founded us in a wooden garage. The first product he did was a device for recharging car batteries so that those batteries do not have to be thrown away. So from the first minute on, sustainability, repairability was a core issue of Fronius. And this is still in our veins. Again, I give you some examples. Whoever of you has already visited us in Austria has noticed that all roofs on all sides are covered with PV modules. We are not only selling our inverters, we are also using them for ourselves, and we're making as much as green and own energy as possible for the offices, but of course also for the production. I can give you here some numbers. You see here on the screen the energy mix of 2022. So all the energy that the whole of Fronius needed in Austria. You see that 60% of our energy came from the grid, but as green electricity. 14.7% came from geothermal energy. We have some geothermal systems installed at Thalheim, for example, so in order to heat the locations. 8.7% came from biomass, and 3.9% of the energy we needed came from our PV systems. So if you add up all these numbers, you get to almost 88%. So almost 88% of the whole energy demand of Fronius came from green sources. The rest of the 12% that are remaining, as you can see, come from natural gas, a little bit diesel and gasoline. So we still have some fossil fuels we are using for some cars and for some specific purposes, but we are working on getting to 100% renewable energy as soon as possible. If you're talking about sustainability and responsible consumption, then you also have to take a look at our products themselves. Maybe you have watched the first episode of this series, Why Fronius. There my colleague Tony explained why Fronius products live longer and that they are repairable and that you can exchange parts very simple. This is exactly what I mean by responsible consumption and production. Our products are designed to produce energy in a minimum of 20 years. And if a service case happens, if there is a part that needs to be replaced, then this is possible by only replacing this part and not by replacing the whole system. So the idea is to replace what is not working anymore, and the rest stays and does not need to be exchanged and thrown away without reason. Also note, all the parts, all the materials that are selected by quality criteria, of course, but also by sustainability criteria. And good enough is not good enough for us. We only accept the best quality and also the best sustainability records. Also, I want to show you this graph. You see here the waste management of Fronius. So you see where the waste that we are producing is going to. You see that 70% or 73% to be exact is recycled and 26% is reused, and only less than 1% is composted or dumped on a landfill. What is the difference between recycling and reusing? So recycling means that a certain part is used again, but for another purpose. Reusing means it is used for the same purpose. Let me give you an example. We have an aluminium body on the power unit of our inverters, and this aluminium body can be melted again. And if it is used again as an aluminium body for our inverters, then this is reuse. If it is melted and used for aluminium cans, for example, then this is called recycling. But in both ways, the material is going back to the usement circulation. And finally, let me show you the last statistic, and this is on logistics. As you can see, over 90% of our products are shipped by truck. Only 4% are going by sea freight, and a very, very small portion of 3% are going by air freight. Fronius is avoiding air freight wherever it is possible. In Europe, we do not use air freight at all, mostly by truck. If it is possible, then also by train. And also with our subsidiaries in other countries, we try to have precise forecasts so that they do not get the need of our products in a very short time and then they need air freight, but so they can order it in advance and receive the products in a more sustainable way. What I want to say is sustainability doesn't end with the production. It also includes all the steps in the further down, and Fronius knows this, and this is taking care that the whole value chain is sustainable. We are getting to an end of this webinar. Let me sum up briefly what I said. This webinar was about Fronius being one of the very last manufacturers in the PV branch that is still producing in Europe and in Austria. Why are we doing this? Because we feel connected to the region. We want to keep know-how for green transition here, and we want to, because of security issues, we are still producing here. We feel connected to the people we're working with. Those people should experience the highest standards possible, and this can be only guaranteed if we are producing in Europe. And finally, we want to produce as sustainable as possible. If you're buying Fronius, then you're not just buying a high quality product, but also the values that are behind the company. And next time a customer asks you why Fronius costs more than the competition, then this is the answer you can give them. You can tell them that high working standards, high quality standards have their price, and they know what they get when they buy Fronius. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. As always, the recording will be forwarded the next days, so you can rewatch it. If you like this webinar, then I can strongly recommend to visit our YouTube channel. There you find other webinars and also some other videos that might help you. If you're interested in further webinars or trainings, then please look at our homepage. There is the possibility to register for upcoming events. Yeah, and finally, one more thing. If you are interested in face-to-face trainings and in visiting us in Wales, of course you can do this. We are welcoming you and happy to discuss with you a whole week or a whole day. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. I wish you all the best. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.